Hello and welcome to another episode of Coffeefusion. This week we're going to look at how to pour a Rosetta. Hey Team Fusion, so if you watched last week's episode on the Latte Art 101 guide for how to pour the tulip, you would be progressing in your basics for latte art pours. And so this week we're going to take a look at pouring the Rosetta, which is a different style of pouring from your tulip or your heart that we've covered in the previous episodes. The main difference with the Rosetta is that we're using a wiggle style pouring motion compared to the tulips or the hearts where you use that bulb where you're pushing in the bulb. With this pattern, you have to pour a little bit differently, wiggling your jug side to side to get your pattern to work. And just another quick tip for you, with your Rosettas, it probably is a little bit easier to pour if you have slightly thinner milk. You can still pour Rosettas with thicker milk, but the way they kind of wrap around in the cup is going to be a little bit harder. Okay, so just like with your other latte art patterns, you want to start off by setting the crema, and you do that by pouring nice and evenly over the top of the crema till you've set in that canvas. But with the Rosetta, you want to make sure you pour with your cup on even more of an angle, because what that's going to do is create even more of a milk flow when you start to wiggle your jug, and that is how you're going to pour your Rosetta. I can't stress that point enough, because with a Rosetta, if you're kind of pouring on top of the pattern and not getting any milk flow, you're never going to get that wrap and that nice leafy kind of style to your pattern. But when you pour with that cup on an angle and get that milk flow working for you, that's when you'll pour your better Rosettas. Okay, so let's take a look at what's happening when you're actually pouring the pattern. So you've got your cup on an angle and you've got your milk kind of flowing into the center or just back of the center of the cup. And you're pouring from a little bit more height than you would when you're kind of pushing those bulbs in for a tulip. So a little bit more height, and then you start the wiggle, and you'll see that as you start to wiggle, it starts to kind of pour onto the surface. And if you've got those angles working correctly for you, you'll see that the milk that you push in starts to move around the cup, and then you continue to wiggle and you start to see the base of that Rosetta forming. So at this point you want to keep wiggling while the base of the Rosetta wraps around on itself, and once it's done that, you want to continue your wiggling while pushing back further towards the base of the cup, and then you want to keep that wiggling going as you pull back up the cup towards you, and then lift up and pull through to finish off the Rosetta. Now, just like the other latte art, it looks very easy when you know what you're doing, but don't be worried if your Rosetta is asymmetrical. Just follow those same techniques and get working on the basics of that pattern, and you'll clean it up and improve it over time. One thing I can recommend for Rosettas is not starting your wiggling until you see the first start of the white there, and then that way you won't wash out the Rosetta as easily. And if you have a couple of milk jugs, try one with a sharper spout, because that'll also make your Rosettas a little bit easier. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you learned something, just click that like button, because that really helps me. And if this is your first Coffeefusion video, make sure you click subscribe, because I've got other videos just like this coming your way. And if you haven't checked out the Coffeefusion website yet, which is coffeefusion.com.au, make sure you check it out, because I've got online coffee courses and they're free lessons, so you can learn very easily no matter what it is you want to learn. And remember guys, Coffeefusion is my full-time business now, so if you like what you see and you want to support Coffeefusion, the best way to do that is to buy your coffee from me. I'm roasting some really good single origins and some blends, and I'm focusing on getting really good green coffees and roasting them the best way I can to get some really nice coffee for you. Thanks again guys, I'll see you next week, and remember, until then, keep frothing.